The past few weeks, I've been talking a lot about content creation and marketing. I released videos and podcast episodes on consistency, top of the funnel, all the freaking things. Because I know that marketing your business can be incredibly frustrating. And it is one of those things that you have to do, right? It's one of those things that there really isn't a way around it. Marketing is how we get your brand seen, it's how we get your brand paid. But one of the things that I have noticed with so many of my clients is that when marketing and content creation is feeling blah, and you feel like you are bad at marketing, that might not be the case. It could just be that you feel disconnected from your content. And when you don't feel connected to your content, how do you expect your audience to feel connected to your content? I can't tell you how many times I have fallen into this cycle as a business owner. I will get really into sharing tips and strategies that I start to lose the storytelling, the things that I truly and genuinely love sharing. And so I gotta bring myself back. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. How do you bring yourself back? How do you make your content more aligned? Because I promise you, when you have this alignment piece, marketing can actually be really easy.
This is the Authentic Brand Builders Podcast with Michelle Knight.
Hey there, Authentic Brand Builder. Welcome back to another episode on the podcast. We're continuing our conversation on content marketing, messaging, all of the things, because I've got an upcoming challenge happening soon. On April 6th, we are kicking off the Brand Clarity Breakthrough Challenge. It's completely free, and I would love for you to join me. So this is kind of your last chance to get signed up to join us for a week of trainings. You can go to brandmary.com/challenge to get more details on that. Now, what we're talking about today is going to be something that we do cover inside of the challenge, but let's back it up. Let's talk about that disconnect that might be happening. A lot of people think that they're bad at marketing, or they're bad at copywriting, or they're bad at content creation, when really it is an alignment issue. And one of the ways to become more aligned with what you're saying online is to come back to yourself, come back to the storytelling aspect of everything. And the best part is that when you start to ooze storytelling into all of your messaging and your content creation, it's going to make it easier for you to show up. It's going to give you a ton of content ideas. And guess what? Your content will also perform better. It really is the secret. Yet sometimes it can feel really hard to make it happen. You can follow all the best strategies online. You can follow all of the best marketing tactics for all the different platforms. But if your content doesn't excite you or feel like you're not going to create it. And again, that ripples into your audience feeling the disconnect as well. And I say this with so much love because, as I mentioned, I've experienced this many, many times. I feel like I have two different personalities. I have the authentic storytelling, vulnerability side of me, and then I have this very strategic and logical side. The strategic and logical side is what makes my program so powerful. I can break down very complex topics in step-by-step pieces, but I don't love doing that in all of my content. I love showing up with a very personal brand approach. And so this is something that I've recently had to come back to. And I know it's going to be beneficial for you if you're also feeling this disconnect with your content as well. A sure sign of this is often when you're coming up with content ideas, you're asking yourself, like, what should I post? Rather than, what do I get excited about posting? Or what do I believe in? Or what do I feel called to share with my ideal customer? This right here, when you're planning out your content for the next 90 days, can be a fantastic place to start. Because we both know that storytelling creates connection, and what ultimately leads people to make a purchase decision? They feel a connection. It's also going to help your audience see themselves in your personal journey. It's going to be able to showcase your authority and your empathy, which is absolutely key in having your audience not only feel seen, heard, and understood, but also knowing that your brand is the brand that's going to help them achieve what they ultimately want to achieve. And it also turns your content from just more noise, more fluff on the internet, because there's so freaking much of that, into something that is really valuable for your ideal customer. A great example of this is when crafting hooks for your content. rather than saying, I help entrepreneurs clarify their brand message, which, yeah, that's great. That's a very clear statement, but it also sounds like everybody else and has zero emotion attached to it. I could say something along the lines of, when I first started my business, I struggled to explain what I did. Every post felt generic, and because of that, nobody was engaging. It wasn't until I started sharing stories in my messaging and in my content that everything clicked. And now I get to help entrepreneurs do the same. Marketing becomes so much easier when you stop trying to sound right or stop trying to go viral, and you start focusing on sharing what actually matters to you and what is important to you. And if you're in my world, chances are that you want to make an impact. You are very driven by your values. You understand the importance of showing up and showing the highs and the lows, and you want to build community. And so this is the step that you really need to ground yourself in time and time again. And I'm going to share with you how to make the shift. And I'm going to share with you some of my tips because we all know we're all about action here at Brand Mary. But I also just want to remind you that this will happen. It happens to all of us. And it might happen again in 6 months. It might happen again in 2 years. I shared my experience of going way too analytical, way too much in the logistics and losing sight of this. And I have to bring myself back to the basics, back to who I am and how I show up in the world. Because just like you don't want to contribute to all the noise, we are surrounded by all the noise, and it can be hard, and sometimes it pulls us away from ourselves. So having grace with yourself, having an understanding, and knowing that you can ground yourself and you can start back up again. So if you're feeling this way, if everything I've shared really resonates with you, then let's talk about some of the things that you can do to shift this in your marketing right now. Number one, and this is the easiest thing to start with, is starting with your personal stories. Now, oftentimes I hear entrepreneurs who get really frustrated, specifically with platforms like Instagram or social media platforms where you constantly have to churn out content. They try really hard to get ahead of schedule, so they'll plan like 30 days in advance, and then they start to lose momentum because they don't feel connected to their content, and it's because they're lacking this storytelling aspect. And this is what happens to me. I recently shared in my email newsletter that I find myself enjoying Instagram right now. Crazy. I know. If you know me, and especially if you're a client of mine and you know how I talk about it on our calls, social media in general, you know that this is a platform that I have always struggled with. But I started just really focusing on storytelling. I told myself that if it isn't a story, then I'm not going to do it. And that has changed the game for me. And I haven't gone viral, and that's okay because I don't use social media at the top of my funnel. But I am having fun showing up. Oh, what a concept. And my audience is engaging with me, and I'm getting DMs again, and I'm getting messages, and I'm getting comments. And that's what truly matters to me, building that connection. So showing up and sharing your personal stories is truly so simple. And one of the things that I love to prioritize when it comes to storytelling while you're building your brand is really just thinking back on your experiences, shared experiences that you have with your ideal customer. And again, they don't have to be the exact same scenario. If the feeling or the takeaway is the same, it's going to do what it needs to do. And so this is why sitting down and just challenging yourself to write down a bunch of stories that connect to your audience and then saying how they connect, it can give you so many content ideas. And when you're sharing your personal stories, you're going to find that your creativity just turns on. It is like heightened on overload, and that's what we want. We want you to enjoy this process. Now, storytelling obviously is something that I teach to also integrate into your long form content. This is a great example. I have shared multiple stories with you inside of this episode alone, but it's also a very actionable piece of content that's going to be on YouTube and my podcast. So yes, you can also infuse storytelling and personal stories into your long form content, but then on social media, you can create those smaller stories that are just really sharing your experience, your transformation, your journey. And I think one of the things that's working so well in terms of storytelling are also our beliefs and our values. So many consumers are making purchase decisions based on values, based on a belief system. They also just cut deeper than what most people are talking about online. So don't be afraid to also share those aspects as long as they are true to your brand. So again, personal stories, if you're new to this, I would challenge you to just show up for 2 weeks and share nothing but personal stories. Just get into the habit of doing it. And then you can start to get more strategic with that process, adding better hooks, adding better call to actions, whatever you feel like you need to do. But if you're new to storytelling or you've been away from it for a while, just challenge yourself to share daily stories for at least 2 weeks. And again, this could be on social media posts. It could just be showing up in Instagram stories. It could be in your YouTube and your podcast videos, on your blog, your email marketing, literally everywhere. One of the things I do quite often is if I feel like I get really into my teaching mode and I am teaching a lot of strategies and all those different things, I will then send an email that's like 100% a story just to ground myself again. And every single time I do it, I get so many responses from my audience. It's just such a beautiful reminder of how powerful storytelling is. All right, number 2, when you're crafting your stories inside of your content, I want you to focus on connection, not perfection. Ditch the expert tone. Let it go away. Even if your brand is a professional brand, okay, you have deemed that like one of your key elements of your brand voice is professional, that's great. Your expert tone is different. And your expert tone is most likely keeping you from sharing your best stories. Because you're overthinking it. You're overanalyzing the entire thing. You're wanting to come across as an expert. You're wanting it to be perfect. But oftentimes, the most impulsive types of stories that I have created because I felt it in the moment and I needed to share it were the highest converting pieces of content that I've ever created. I'm specifically thinking of one that I shared last July where I was sharing more of my fitness journey and I was feeling really proud of myself in that moment. And I took a picture in the mirror and I was like, I'm going to share this on social media. I feel really great about it. And I really want to draw attention to the fact that this took me a really long time to get here. I had my son, it was 8 years ago last year, and that's when I started my business. And it's been 8 years of working to get to this fitness level and this level of health. And I wanted to share that and remind my audience that sometimes it's not a sprint, it's a freaking marathon and you have to pace yourself. And sometimes your goals are going to take a little bit longer than maybe you wanted them to take, but that's okay. And I wrote that post in maybe 4 minutes. It was very choppy, a bunch of short sentences, and it got absolute amazing engagement. I turned it into an email. So when you are coming from a more authentic place and you remove that expert tone or it having to be perfect and you're really just authentically being yourself, it makes a heck of a difference. The next thing I want you to start practicing with your storytelling is micro stories. So many entrepreneurs get really hung up on their brand story. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast and on YouTube and inside of all of my programs. We get really hung up on our brand story. Like, what is this long story? All of these chapters that unfolded to bring me here. That's great. That's a fantastic story. You want to start there. It's a core element of your brand. But then you have to kind of switch gears and start focusing on these digital micro stories. These are specifically moments in time. Small, everyday moments that are highlighted. They illustrate a very specific point that you're trying to get across. Think of them as little snippets that you can put into your content. And this is where the micro stories can actually be infused into your longer content, very similar to what I've done here. This is kind of like a masterclass on this topic, which is funny. But also you can use these for social media. And that's where the micro stories really freaking shine. And get creative with it. Try a micro story as a caption with a photo. Try a micro story as a carousel. Try a micro story as a short form video. Whatever approach is easiest for you to get started, that's what I want you to do. But when you focus on a micro story, it allows you to be very specific with the takeaway, very specific with the transformation, very specific with what you want your audience to walk away with. And it also allows you to paint a more vivid picture of what's happening, which is going to elevate your storytelling as a whole. Another storytelling hack, and this is also a content creation hack, is to create content that excites you. And I know I mentioned this already, but if you find yourself in a cycle of creating content or talking about certain topics because that's what you think everybody wants, but then you don't love talking about those topics, you're not going to do it. You're going to feel so disconnected. You're going to hate it. And this happened to me. I love teaching my clients SEO. I love teaching my clients Pinterest and advanced marketing strategies because I love the customization, because I love when my clients come to me and they say, all right, this is what my brand is. What do you recommend I do for SEO? But I do not like creating general content around it. I do not enjoy talking about Pinterest marketing or SEO marketing on social media, specifically like the how-tos. I love talking about the effect of it and how powerful it is, but teaching the how-tos or breaking that down. And I realized that I was really falling into this trap when what I love to talk about on my content is authentic content and aligned content creation. I love talking more specifically about sustainable marketing as a big picture, storytelling, branding. Those are the things that excite me. And I love to keep those strategies that I know and I'm really good at for my clients behind closed doors. It also allows me to attract the right clients because I'm not just attracting clients who are only worried about SEO. I know that I'm attracting clients with my content that care about branding, they care about their story, they care about connection, and they use SEO as a tool. This is how this showed up in my business. So really start paying attention to what type of content excites you. And you might have to experiment just across the board with a bunch of different types of content in order to find this. And that's why I tell my clients to treat it like a game. Like, see what hits, see what fails, see what excites you, see what doesn't, and repeat that process for 30 or 60 days to find your groove. Which leads to the last one. You've got to practice storytelling regularly. Now, I know that I encourage you to do 2 weeks of storytelling. I also just encourage you to infuse storytelling into absolutely everything that you create. So yes, this is an educational podcast. This is an educational video that's going to be on my YouTube channel. But I've talked about my story so many times in this one episode. So it doesn't have to just be a standalone story if you're not using social media. It can also be integrated into your long form content, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. I didn't map out any of these stories in my outline, but the second I started talking about them, because I've practiced storytelling so often, I could pull that story out with no problem. That's what I want you to get really good at. A heightened awareness of your story and the pieces that you can then connect into your brand almost effortlessly. And to get into that habit, before you start creating a piece of content, just ask yourself, what story connects to this? What lived experience have I had that connects to this? What's a story that I could share from a client that connects to this? Is there a fictional story that I could create that would connect to this? And then you're going to get into a habit of weaving stories into your posts, into your emails, into every aspect of your marketing, which I promise you it's going to make it more enjoyable. And as I've already mentioned, we know that storytelling actually improves how long your audience remembers your content, how engaging your content becomes, and leads to a higher conversion rate. So not only are you feeling good and excited, but so is your audience, which is kind of a big deal and what we want. I hope that this episode was really helpful in shining some light on marketing in general and content in general. And I'm a very strategic person. As I mentioned, I got 2 sides. I'm a very strategic person. I love teaching content strategy and I love all of that. But at the end of the day, if you're not excited about the type of content you're creating, what you're saying, no strategy is going to fix that. It might give you a burst for 30 days, and then you're going to fall back into a cycle. And so if you find yourself falling into the cycle over and over again, it might be time to just get back to that branding phase and ask yourself, what do I love talking about? What are the things that excite me? What kind of legacy and impact do I want to create online? This is going to make content creation stop feeling like a chore in your business. And it's going to start feeling exciting because it's an extension of who you are. And this is exactly why I'm so excited for the upcoming challenge. So again, if storytelling is something you definitely want to focus in on, we are going to be touching on that inside of the Brand Clarity Breakthrough Challenge, but we're also just going to be talking about a larger zoomed out look at providing brand clarity to you through your brand messaging. So if you want to get signed up for that challenge, it's kicking off on April 6th. You can go to brandmary.com/challenge. And if you're watching this video or listening to this podcast after that date has passed, then you can just go ahead and go over to brandmary.com and see what fun things we've got in the works. I've also got a ton of videos and podcasts on storytelling in your branding, storytelling in your marketing. It's kind of what we do here at Brand Mary, so it's everywhere. I would love to hear your takeaways from today's episode. So if you are watching this video on YouTube, leave me a comment below. And if you are listening on the podcast, leave a review. I would love to hear if this specific episode spoke to you or if you've loved any other ones in the past as well. It really does mean a lot to get those likes, get those reviews. It helps us build the podcast, and it also helps me understand what type of content you really love. I know you love storytelling because last year, an episode on storytelling was my highest downloaded episode by like a freaking landslide. It was pretty cool. So I love that you love this topic because, as you can tell, I love this topic as well. And that right there is the alignment that I want you to achieve for your brand. All right, I will be back with another episode, my friend. I hope to see you inside of the Brand Clarity Breakthrough Challenge kicking off on April 6th. Head to brandmary.com/challenge, and I will talk to you soon.